talk about government being this big leviathan that consumes all these taxes, but I think you fail to neglect the military is a part of government. And I just want you to address that. You think the military is a part of government? And do you know the exact figures that it spends, the American military consumes as a part of government?
I'll repeat his question. His question was that I talk about the large expenditures that our government makes and that the military is a part of that expenditure, and what is my position on that? The military is part of the enumerated powers stated in the Constitution, that the government is to provide the safety, welfare, and protection of its people. That comes from the military. I believe in a strong military. I believe that we should be funding our military at a higher rate than we are now. It has been cut a lot during the last 8 years. I think instead it should be funded more. Now, I know what Mr. Trump has said is that our military alliances that we have around the world, that some of our allies should be paying more for their protection and not all of that being borne by the brunt of the American taxpayers. I agree with that also. We should have these alliances because they're important. But a country like a bloc like the European Union or NATO, the American taxpayers are paying too much of a burden for that. And so, yes, I agree that the military is a vital and important part of our government and that it needs to be strengthened. Why? Because the stronger your military, the more opportunity you have for peace to exist. It's called peace through strength.
Good evening. Thanks for the presentation. May I ask a question that does not provoke controversy? Today, about the U.S. presidential election process, we hear about the Electoral College, a concept that is foreign to Jamaica. Can you just give a comment and critique of the process of selecting a president? Bear in mind that we don't have that process that you have in Jamaica.
There are 50 constituencies in the United States, just like here in Jamaica. Plus the District of Columbia. But instead of getting one vote, and then you need 33, right, to get to your majority. Instead, you need 270 votes. Each constituency is of a different size. So the District of Columbia, Montana, Wyoming, Vermont have 3 votes. California, Texas, New York have over Florida. How many does Florida have? 39. So a few states have 39 and it's all more or less based on population, except for the very small states.
No, it is by the number of members of the House and the Senate that you have.
Right, which is largely determined by population, except that every state has 2 senators. Anyways, it's basically all states start with 3 votes, and then you go up from there based on your population. You need to get 270 votes to be elected president. And so instead of the U.S. having a national election, we have, in fact, 51 different elections. There are 2 exceptions to this. In Maine and in Nebraska, instead of the person who wins the state, like winning a constituency, getting all the votes, you get the votes for the votes that would normally go representing the senators go to the person who wins the entire state. And each congressional district votes separately. And so in that case, you have Maine has 3, Nebraska has 4. So in Maine, you have the equivalent of 4 elections going on. Nebraska, you have the equivalent of 5 elections going on. It's all very complicated, but basically, it's like you're trying to get to 33 to form a majority here in Jamaica, but instead you're trying to get to 270, and the constituencies vary in size depending on the population of the state.
So bearing in mind all of that, and it's so complicated that even all the persons here who are directly connected to it still have some difficulty grasping, groping it. No, so that's it.
Grappling.
You know, I better stop. All right. Question. So for all of that explanation, bearing in mind this concept that we have as to what a democracy is, that is a system whereby the popular votes of the people end up creating a system of governance where people are elected by the popular vote. Do you honestly think that this reflects the will of the people, this system? And I'm going to ask the representative, the elected representative.
First, I would like to correct you and a lot of others. The United States is not a democracy. It's a republic. And there's a difference. Democracy says that majority rules. What a republic says is that you must work within the constraints of the rule of law. So even if the majority says that they want things to go a certain way, if it goes against the rule of law, which the basis of that is our Constitution, then it is not valid.
One of the things that I hear consistently, I went to college in the US, is that I'll sit down tonight and watch CNN, and I will hear the presenters speaking about American democracy. This is a democracy. I understand it's a republic. It's a republic. Okay, but conceptually, we have been told and we understand that America is a democracy as opposed to being a dictatorship, etc. Am I right? Right. So I understand the technical. So I understand the technical difference, though. Right. So it's not about the technicality, right? I can embrace that. I'm simply talking about a system whereby the will of the people really gets exercised, and that's where I'm coming from. Yeah.
We have come to the close of the event, and I'd just like to remind you that this public forum was brought to you by the 51% Coalition with the very generous and solid support of the U.S. Embassy and implemented by Panos Caribbean. I would very much like to thank Mr. Walter Mike Hill. I would like to thank Mr. Damian Gordon. I'd like also to thank Mr. Taylor. I'd like to thank Dr. Taylor, Dr. Orville Taylor. At this time, I have nothing left to do but to wish you a good evening and safe travel to your homes. Thank you.
Public Forum was brought to you by the U.S. Embassy and 51% Coalition with Panos Caribbean as implementing partner.